They told you Elizabeth I never married by choice. They lied. You hear it first, footsteps running on stone. Voices rising in panic. Her ladies cluster outside the privy chamber, faces drained white. Someone is dying. The door opens. The smell hits you, sweat, rosewater failing to mask something sick underneath. There, collapsed against silk pillows soaked with fever, is the Queen of England. Elizabeth Tudor. 29 years old. Unmarried. Childless. Dying of smallpox. Her skin burns like furnace stone. She calls for her father, dead 15 years. The red rash spreads across her chest like spilled wine. Lord Robert Dudley sits at her bedside through the night. Near dawn, she grabs his wrist. "If I die," she whispers, "you must be Lord Protector." Everyone believes they're watching the end of the Tudor dynasty. But here's what no one tells you. This isn't the tragedy. This is the beginning of something worse. Because Elizabeth doesn't die. Against every expectation, the fever breaks. November 1562. She opens her eyes. But when her ladies bring her a mirror, the woman staring back is not the same. Her face is crater-marked with scars. Deep ones that will never fade. She's alive. But something else died in that room. Watch what happens next. Before October 1562, marriage negotiations move forward. Ambassadors write about heirs, about children, about dynasty. Parliament pressures her constantly. After October 1562, the negotiations continue. But the language shifts. Becomes careful. Ambiguous. Complications regarding succession. Uncertainties about Her Majesty's health. Matters concerning heirs of her body. What changed? 25 serious proposals over 45 years. Some negotiations lasting a decade. Kings and princes offering kingdoms, armies, protection. And Elizabeth finds a reason to delay every single one. Historians say she was playing politics masterfully, using marriage as diplomatic leverage. Too smart to give up power. But here's the question they don't ask. What if she had no choice? What if something happened in that fever-racked room that made marriage, and everything it meant for a queen, impossible? What if the scars everyone could see were nothing compared to the ones they couldn't? The answer is in her body. And it's horrifying. We're about to enter territory most history channels avoid. The uncomfortable reality behind the myth. If you want history without the sanitization, subscribe now. Because Crimson Historians doesn't do shallow. And if you won't subscribe, comment below. Tell us why you think you'll find this depth anywhere else. This is Crimson Historians, where history bleeds truth. Now let's talk about what that fever really did to Elizabeth Tudor. But to understand what happened to Elizabeth in that plague room, you need to see what was done to her long before. May 19, 1536. Elizabeth is 2 years and 8 months old. She hears the cannon fire across the Thames. One blast. That's how they announce a royal execution. Her mother's head has just been cut off. That night, Elizabeth is declared a bastard. One signature and the king's daughter becomes nobody. No legal rights. No protection. Her life worth exactly what her father decided on any given day. She learned fast. Henry's court was an abattoir with silk curtains. And of Cleves, rejected for physical defects. Catherine Howard, beheaded at 21 for adultery. Catherine Parr, survived by staying invisible. The lesson: a woman's body is always evidence against her. Elizabeth is 14. Thomas Seymour begins visiting her bedchamber before she's dressed. When he's arrested for treason, they interrogate her for weeks. About her virginity. About whether she's pregnant. She's 14 and grown men are writing state reports about her body. The scandal follows her for life. Then comes the Tower. March 1554. Mary is queen. Protestant rebellions erupting. They lock Elizabeth in the same cells where her mother waited for death. 2 months. Not knowing if today is the day. Every footstep could be the guard coming to take her to the scaffold. What saves her? They can't build a solid case. She walks out in May. But the girl who went in isn't the woman who comes out. She's learned survival means never showing your real self. Mary dies. Elizabeth is queen at 25. Within weeks, get married. Produce an heir. It's not a suggestion. It's a demand from everyone. The suitors begin. Elizabeth delays. Always another reason. Then October 1562. Hampton Court. She collapses. Fever. Delirium. Within a day, the red rash appears. Smallpox. 4 days she's unconscious. Her counselors discuss succession. Mary Queen of Scots prepares her claim. But Elizabeth wakes. When they bring her a mirror, the face staring back is cratered with scars. Deep pockmarks that will never fade. Lord Burghley writes to ambassadors, greatly disfigured. The white lead paste begins. Venetian ceruse. Every morning. Thick enough to hide the damage. But smallpox doesn't just scar your face. The virus attacks everything. Your organs. Your reproductive system. Medical records document it. Women who survive severe smallpox often develop pelvic inflammatory disease. Scarring of the fallopian tubes. Damage to the ovaries. Look at diplomatic correspondence before and after. Before 1562, ambassadors write about future heirs, about children Elizabeth will bear. After 1562, the language shifts. Heirs of her body as if that's now a question. Reports about Her Majesty's health that suggest something unspoken. What changed? 4 years after smallpox. Elizabeth collapses with severe abdominal pain. She's convinced she's dying. She demands Robert Dudley be made Lord Protector. For the first time, physicians are allowed to examine her properly. Dr. Hewick, her personal physician, enters her chambers. What he sees, he never writes down. Not in his detailed medical notes. Not in any report. 1 year later, 1567, Dr. Hewick is dead. Sudden fever. The official cause. His findings died with him. But after 1566, something shifts permanently. Marriage negotiations continue, but the urgency about heirs becomes absent. Replaced by careful silence. As if everyone now knows something they can't say out loud. The suitors came in waves. Kings and princes and archdukes sending portraits, letters, promises. But there was only ever one man Elizabeth loved. Robert Dudley. They grew up together. Childhood friends before the execution started, before the Tower, before everything went dark. He was there at her coronation, leading her horse through London while crowds screamed her name. Tall. Handsome. Protestant. Ambitious. Perfect. Except for one problem. He was married to Amy Robsart. September 1560. Amy is found at the bottom of the stairs at Cumnor Place. Neck broken. Dead. The scandal explodes immediately. Whispers that Dudley murdered her to marry the Queen. Some say Elizabeth herself ordered it. The rumors spread across Europe like plague. Every ambassador writes home about it. The marriage now impossible without destroying Elizabeth's legitimacy. But here's what's strange. Elizabeth wanted to marry him anyway. She was in love. Probably the only time in her life she genuinely loved someone. Her advisors threatened revolt. Foreign powers would use it as proof England was ruled by murderers. Her reign would crumble. So she didn't marry him. But she kept him close. Made him Earl of Leicester. Gave him estates, titles, power. Flirted with him in public. Let everyone think they were lovers. And here's the question nobody asks. Why not marry him secretly? She was queen. She could have done it. A private ceremony. Announce it later. Claim it was always legitimate. Kings had done it before. Henry VIII married in Berlin in secret months before making it public. But Elizabeth never did. Even when she had the perfect excuse, the man she loved, available and desperate to marry her, she didn't. Why? Years later, when Dudley is dying, he writes her a letter. It's found among her private papers after her death, tied with ribbon, marked in her handwriting, his last letter. In it he mentions the truth we alone know. The secret that bound us in sorrow rather than joy. What secret? What if Dudley knew? What if she told him what the doctors saw in 1566? What if he understood she couldn't give him children, couldn't give England heirs, and that's why marriage was impossible? Not scandal. Not politics. Biology. The other suitors tell the same story with different faces. Philip II of Spain, 1559. Serious proposal right after her coronation. Real negotiations lasting over a year. He offers to make England part of the greatest empire on earth. She refuses on religious grounds. His Catholic. England would revolt. But notice the timeline. This is 1559. Before the smallpox. When she could still afford to refuse powerful men. Then comes Archduke Charles of Austria. 1563 to 1567. 4 years of negotiations. He sends portraits. She displays them. Discusses terms. It's going well. October 1562 hits. The smallpox nearly kills her. After she recovers, the negotiations continue. But they are different now. Slower. Cooler. By 1567 they've collapsed completely. What changed? The Archduke didn't. The political situation didn't. Elizabeth did. The last serious courtship comes in 1579. Francois, Duke of Anjou. Elizabeth is 4 to 6 years old now. She calls him my frog in letters, affectionate and playful. For a while it seems real. She appears genuinely interested. But her Privy Council resists. Unusually hard. There's a documented moment where one of them says outright, Her Majesty's health makes this match unwise. She's 4 to 6. Too old for children anyway by Tudor standards. So why marry at all? Because marriage for a queen was never about love. It was about alliances, protection, political power. But marriage without heirs meant giving control to a foreign prince and getting nothing in return. No dynasty, no continuation, just absorption into someone else's power structure. Better to stay the virgin queen. Better to keep the myth alive than expose the truth. So the negotiations collapse. The last one. After that, no more serious suitors. Just the legend of the queen married to England. But legends require maintenance. Every morning for 4 to 5 years, Elizabeth's ladies apply Venetian ceruse to her face. White lead mixed with vinegar. Sometimes they add arsenic to make it stick better. The recipe is centuries old. Popular across European courts. But Elizabeth needs it more than anyone. Those smallpox scars have to disappear. Every pockmark. Every crater. Covered until her face looks porcelain smooth. In candlelight she must look ageless. Eternal. Divine. Not human. Because any crack in that facade, any sign of weakness or age or damage, and the wolves circle. Spain waits for excuse to invade. Catholic assassins plot constantly. Her own nobles calculate whether they could do better with a different monarch. The makeup isn't vanity. It's armor. Lead absorbs through skin. Modern medical research proves it. Into your bloodstream. Your bones. Your brain. The symptoms of chronic lead poisoning read like Elizabeth's documented health problems. Severe headaches. Her letters mention them constantly. Abdominal pain. Her attendance record she often couldn't eat. Joint pain and weakness. By her 40s she needs help with stairs. Mood swings. She's famous for her temper, screaming one moment, charming the next. Memory problems. In later years courtiers note she loses track of conversations. 4 to 5 years of daily exposure. By her 40s, her skin is dry and flaking. The lead breaking down her skin's natural barrier. By her 50s, open sores form. Small ones at first. Then larger. They cover them with more makeup, which makes them worse, which requires more makeup. By her 60s, there are patches of damaged tissue that won't heal. Necrosis. Tissue death from decades of lead. But in public she's perfect. Glowing. Untouchable. The portraits from her later reign become increasingly stylized. The rainbow portrait shows her as a young woman though she's nearly 70. No wrinkles. Perfect skin. It's not a portrait of a person. It's an icon. Most history channels skip this part. The medical reality. The literal poisoning. We're showing you what the lead actually did because that's what Crimson Historians does. We don't sanitize. If you're still watching without subscribing, ask yourself where else you're getting this level of detail. We don't chase algorithms. We chase truth. The lead mask was one cage. The stays were another. Tudor fashion demanded a specific silhouette. Tiny waist, flat chest, rigid triangular torso. To achieve this, women wore stays reinforced with whalebone, wood, sometimes steel. Elizabeth wore hers tighter than anyone. Had to. At state functions she needed to stand for hours without showing fatigue. The stays held her upright when her body wanted to collapse. Properly laced Tudor stays reduced your waist by 4 to 6 inches. Elizabeth's ladies reported lacing hairs even tighter. 6 to 8 inches of compression. Every day. For 4 to 5 years. What does that do to a body? Your ribs bend inward. Over time they deform permanently. Your lungs can't fully inflate. Breathing becomes shallow. Always. You never get quite enough air. Your liver gets compressed and displaced. Your intestines squashed. Digestion becomes agonizing because there's nowhere for your stomach to expand. Autopsy reports from other noble women of the era show the damage. Cracked ribs. Indented livers. Compressed lungs with reduced capacity. Spinal deformities from constant unnatural posture. When they finally cut the stays off Elizabeth's corpse, historical accounts record deep grooves in her torso. Permanent indentations where the bones had pressed for 4 to 5 years. Grooves so deep you could see the outline of the stay structure imprinted in her flesh. Cracked ribs from the pressure. The price of appearing strong. But she couldn't stop wearing them. Without them she'd look soft. Human. And she needed to look superhuman. Every public appearance was an endurance test. Standing in the stays for hours. Breathing shallow. In pain. Smiling. Because if she showed discomfort, any weakness, it would be in every ambassador's report by nightfall. And they'd all start calculating how much longer England's queen would last. So she stood. And smiled. And slowly destroyed her body to preserve her power. But the cage of lead and whalebone wasn't the cruelest thing Elizabeth endured. That came in 1568. A woman arrived at the English border. Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots. Elizabeth's cousin. They'd never met face to face, but they'd been circling each other for years like wolves claiming the same territory. Mary was fleeing rebellion in Scotland. Catholic. Beautiful. Fertile. And according to half of Europe, the legitimate Queen of England because Elizabeth was a bastard born of an illegal marriage. Just by existing, Mary was a threat. But that wasn't the knife. Mary had been married 3 times. She had a son, James, 6 years old when his mother fled to England. Healthy, legitimate, Protestant, raised in Scotland away from his Catholic mother. Elizabeth had nothing. No husband. No children. No heir of her body. And here's the bitter mathematics of it. Mary's son would inherit Elizabeth's throne. Everything Elizabeth built. Everything she suffered for. The lead poisoning. The stays crushing her ribs. The decades of political maneuvering. All of it would pass to Mary's child. The woman who threatened her reign would win through biology. Did Elizabeth see the cruel joke? She could have married Dudley if children weren't required. Could have had love, companionship, partnership. But a queen needs heirs. Without them, marriage is just handing power to a foreign prince and getting nothing back. So she stayed alone. And Mary's legacy inherited everything. For 19 years, Elizabeth kept Mary imprisoned, moving her from castle to castle, always under guard. The plots never stopped. Catholics using Mary as their figurehead. Assassins promising to kill Elizabeth and crown Mary instead. The Babington Plot, 1586. Young Catholic nobles planning Elizabeth's murder. This time there's proof. Letters in Mary's own hand approving the assassination. Elizabeth hesitates for months. Mary is a queen. Anointed by God. Executing her sets a terrifying precedent that monarchs can be held accountable. But in February 1587, Elizabeth signs the death warrant. Mary is beheaded at Fotheringhay Castle. She dies well. Calm. Dignified. Wearing red, the Catholic color of martyrdom. Elizabeth falls into documented depression afterward. Won't eat. Won't sleep. Sits for hours staring at nothing. Some historians think it's political theater. But her ladies report it was real. Was it guilt? Mary was her cousin. Or was it recognition? She'd just killed the one woman who represented everything Elizabeth wasn't. Mary had been married, desired, loved, betrayed. Had lost everything. And still had something Elizabeth never would. Biological legacy. The years grind forward. Elizabeth grows older. The lead accumulates in her bones. The stays deform her ribs further. She tries to fill the void Dudley left with new favorites. Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex. Dudley's stepson. 30 years younger than Elizabeth. Handsome. Charismatic. Reckless. She dotes on him excessively. Forgives his mistakes. Defends him against critics. It's almost motherly. September 1599. Essex returns from a failed military campaign in Ireland. He bursts into her private chambers at Nonsuch Palace. Early morning. Unannounced. Unauthorized. Elizabeth is still in her nightgown. Her wig is off. Her face bare of makeup. For the first time in decades, someone sees Elizabeth's real face. Essex freezes. The accounts say he was taken aback. Shocked. He stammers an apology and backs out. What did he see? The scars from smallpox, 37 years old but never healed. The damage from lead. The face of a 70-year-old woman instead of the ageless icon. Elizabeth never forgives him. Not for the military failure. For seeing her without the mask. February 1601. Essex tries to stage a coup. Marches on the palace with armed supporters. It collapses within hours. Pathetic and desperate. But it's treason. Elizabeth signs his execution warrant. Her ladies report she wept while signing it. But she signed it. Essex is beheaded February 25, 1601. He's 34 years old. After his execution, Elizabeth is never the same. The depression that always stalked her finally catches up. She stops caring about appearances. Stops eating properly. Stops sleeping. The physical decay accelerates. By 1600 she's lost most of her teeth. The lead and sugar rotting them away. Her breath smells terrible. She stuffs her cheeks with cloth to maintain the shape of her face, which makes speaking difficult and eating almost impossible. Her hair is gone. Destroyed by the lead, the stress, age. She wears increasingly elaborate wigs. Some piled 2 feet high, decorated with jewels and pearls. So heavy they give her headaches. But she needs them. Needs the illusion of youth. Her hands shake constantly. Tremors that make writing uncertain. Could be more lead poisoning. Could be Parkinson's. Could just be accumulated damage from 70 years of survival. Her eyesight fails. She can barely read without glasses, which she refuses to wear in public because it makes her look old. And there's the smell. Historical letters mention it carefully. Euphemistically. Much perfume required in her chambers. Her Majesty's apartments must be well aired daily. But one lady's private letter written years after Elizabeth's death is explicit. There was a corruption in Her Majesty's body that no perfume could disguise. Tumor. Abscess. Internal infection her immune system can't fight because of the lead poisoning. Something inside Elizabeth is rotting while she still lives. January 1603. She stops wearing the makeup. Just stops. Her ladies are horrified. Without it, everyone will see the scars, the discoloration, the damage. She doesn't care anymore. I am past caring what they see, she reportedly says. Let them look. She stops eating. Not by choice. Swallowing has become agony. Her throat swollen. Her stomach can't tolerate food. She manages sips of broth. Some wine. Nothing more. Her abdomen swells grotesquely. She looks pregnant. Cruel joke for the Virgin Queen. It's probably fluid from organ failure. Her liver and kidneys shutting down. But the symbolism devastates. After a lifetime refusing marriage and children, her body mocks her. And she refuses to go to bed. This becomes the defining feature of her final weeks. Her doctors beg. Her counselors plead. Her ladies try to persuade. She won't do it. She sits in chairs. Leans against cushions on the floor. Her ladies hold her upright. Days pass. Then a week. 2 weeks. She barely speaks. When she does, it's fragments. names of people long dead, half-remembered prayers in Latin. Why won't she lie down? Once she said, "Once I lie in that bed, I shall never rise again." Maybe lying down meant surrender. Elizabeth spent 70 years refusing to surrender to anything. Or maybe lying flat put unbearable pressure on her damaged organs. Maybe the pain was too severe. Or maybe she was just delirious and terrified and holding onto the last shred of control she had. Staying upright. Her counselors panic. She hasn't named an heir. If she dies without designating a successor, England could descend into civil war. Finally, on March 23, they get her to make some gesture toward James, Mary's son. The accounts differ on whether she actually spoke his name or just nodded. But it's enough. That night she finally consents to bed. Or rather, she collapses and can't be moved. They carry her to the royal bed. Her breathing is labored. Irregular. Her eyes open but unfocused. She can't speak anymore. Archbishop Whitgift kneels beside her and prays. Her ladies hold her hands. Her counselors stand in corners already planning the transition. As dawn approaches on March 24, 1603, her breathing becomes shallow. Then stops. Elizabeth Tudor dies. No profound last words. No deathbed confession. She just stops breathing. Here's what we know for certain. Smallpox nearly killed her in 1562. Marriage negotiations changed after. 4 to 5 years of lead exposure. Constant damage from stays. Never married despite overwhelming pressure. Never had children. Chronic health problems documented throughout her reign. The horrifying reality isn't conspiracy. It's medicine. Smallpox probably caused fertility complications. Marriage without heirs meant foreign control. Better to be the virgin queen by divine choice than exposed as a queen who couldn't produce heirs. The real horror is the slow poisoning by beauty standards. The real tragedy is 4 to 5 years of suffering for political survival. The real cost is her body destroyed to preserve her power. Why she never married, not choice alone. Not entirely political calculation. Medical impossibility hidden behind political strategy. The mask was virgin queen by divine choice. The truth was a queen who couldn't risk exposure. 30 minutes of researched history. No conspiracy theories. No invented drama. Just documented facts and medical analysis. This is what Crimson Historians delivers every time. Elizabeth's story matters because it's true. Real history is more powerful than fiction. The actual horror, beauty standards, political traps, medical reality, is worse than any conspiracy. If you made it this far without subscribing, we need to understand why. You just watched 30 minutes most channels won't make. The algorithm doesn't reward depth. We chose depth anyway. So subscribe. Not for us. For history done right. If you won't subscribe, comment below. Tell us why you'll consume this research but won't click a button. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Or admit you just take without giving back. Because at Crimson Historians, we don't just study history. We learn from it. Elizabeth died hiding what she couldn't change. Don't hide from supporting what you value. This is Crimson Historians, where history bleeds truth.